right, welcome to another episode of The Diplomats, where we are here to talk to the winner of the Season 5 finals. We saved the best for last. Kutusov, also known as Alessandro, coming all the way from Italy. We'll talk about his championship win in the biggest event of the year in diplomacy, I believe, either in both face-to-face or online. We are, as always, brought to you by diplomacybriefing.com, where you can get all your diplomacy briefing free into your email box. Just go to diplomacybriefing.com and sign up. Our other two companions, Superstition and Audacious Hand, may make it. We had difficulty scheduling with time zones and whatnot, so we will see. But that was a problem suffered in the game too. Kutusov, congratulations. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
This is the second time I had a chance to interview you. You also were in the speedboat finals, playing Germany again, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired of always playing Germany in the finals.
Well, you won, so you shouldn't be that tired now. Tell us a little bit about your diplomacy career before we get into the game. I mean, like, what got you interested? How long have you been playing, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so like I said in the previous interview, I started like 6, 7 months ago on the Conspiracy app because I wanted to play something online with my friends during the pandemic. I would then play these low level, bad quality games until I met this Italian community of diplomacy, which then introduced me to the Nexus tournament and the whole Nexus Discord server that I joined, which I joined a couple months ago, and I would never have expected to go so well at the time. I joined just to have some good quality games and to have fun mainly, but it turned out really well in the end.
It certainly did. You do you have a history of like strategy games or chess or complicated algorithms you have to solve?
Yes, I used to play some chess, not a great player, and but I usually like strategy board games. It's something I usually play. I I I have the physical diplomacy board game, but I never found anyone to play it with.
Yeah, I've only played one game of physical diplomacy with anyone. It's difficult to get 7 people interested.
Yes, it's
Uh,
true.
like, why are the Italians dominating Nexus? The Nexus finals have had many Italian champions.
Yeah, we we had the last edition. We had Pets de Mer, and it's the second edition in a row that time wins this championship. So it's it's fun. It's fun.
Okay. Um, so you were the fourth seed going into this game, but got to pick second. You picked Germany. You could have picked anywhere you wanted. You went right next to Doc Binder, who's got a really
Yes.
formidable champion, great reputation. Why did you pick that country?
So I picked Germany for mainly two reasons. The first of all is that Germany is one of the countries that I have more experience with in diplomacy. It might even be my favorite country in the game, and because it's true that it's a central power, and central powers usually get a rough time, but actually it has a good balance between initial board positioning and influence and diplomatic leverage, not only in the West but also in the East. Thanks to his central position. And the second reason is that I knew that Doc was picking France, and I thought that there was a high probability that I would decide how the Western Triangle went, because A lot of people thought that, okay, an EG is going to form. They thought it was obvious, but at the time was not that obvious for me. I actually already met Doc in one of the preliminary games. He came in as a substitute for another player, so I had the chance to meet him. He struck me as a great player, and at the time I was actually thinking of doing an FG. So
So you didn't come in with any preconceived notions, but you thought you could maybe go either way if you were Germany.
yes.
Um, sorry, did you have any experience with anyone else on the board? You mentioned you played with Doc when he was a substitute, but any of the other players, did you have any games with?
Yes, I had a game with Poser Tom, um, which didn't end well for me. I was Austria, he was Turkey, and yes, it was one of those bad Austria games in which they get killed in a couple of seasons. So, uh, and the funny thing is that Poser Tom Turkey, he was the one behind my death, but he was the only one acting as my friend. So I knew a little bit of his style. So
Well, if
he
you
was the
listen to
only.
the other interviews, most of the other people say Poser Tom was in. He had his. He was involved in every conversation as much as he could. He tried to be everywhere,
Yes.
and you confirm that.
Yeah, I confirm that.
A
Too
lot of
much.
people said they thought he was unreliable, right? I mean,
Very unreliable.
yeah,
Very unreliable.
but friendly. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting combination.
He's a nice guy, but he's too unreliable, too much, especially at the end. And he wanted to win. Everybody wanted to win. It was too much. So.
Well, it's very stressful. I've been through one of these myself. Um, I'm curious what you made of uh, the revelation of Ewok being Village Idiot, and uh, did you know anything about Village Idiot at the time, and how did you think that would sort of play out in the beginning?
So I didn't really know who Village Idiot was. It was just this name that people would mention from time to time, and this village, and sometimes he would even write on the Nexus Discord server. I I knew he was a strong player because before to prepare for this final, I went to look the previous Nexus finals to do some studying. I saw that he participated in the season 2 final, so I knew he was an ex-finalist, and also I saw he was pretty high in the general Nexus rating rankings. So, but apart from that, that he's a good player and he has this strong reputation. I didn't really know much about him. I didn't know his play style. I never met him before, so it was pretty fun when I mean, just for the fact that he had to use a secret identity
Right.
to participate. Just for that, it was fun.
Um, so talk about opening negotiations with, or at least the adjacent powers of Russia, England, and France. I guess you could talk about Italy and Austria, but just give me your general impressions of, uh, uh, when you obviously reached a plan with England, but how did that come about, and how quickly did it come about, and what you thought of everybody in the beginning?
Yes, so I started talking with France and England in the equal matter to figure out who am I going to work with, how do I want the game to proceed, and the way I talked with Russia was more based on who I decided to ally with. So I wasn't very specific with Russia. He would ask me about Sweden, but I would say I'll think about it. I have to see. I was vague at the beginning. uh, France proposed. He would. I talked more with him at the beginning because England was a bit busy, and he started. I liked him more at the beginning, but the more I talked with him, the more I started having this feeling of not being that comfortable um, he started off saying, okay, I'll give you Belgium. Belgium is yours. Right in his first message, he said, okay, Belgium is yours. We're not even going to talk about it. I'll support you there. And I didn't really like the fact that he right away wanted me into Belgium. And I know it could be very attractive to have 3 builds at the beginning, but it also gives you a big target on your back. And I mean, I understand that Doc wanted the attention to go away from him. He was certainly fearing an EG to form, but I think that this fear he had at the end just just made it happen. It made this alliance happen. He would also propose other things like a Western triple, which I hate as a Germany. I would
Of
never
course.
do. I would never do a Western triple as Germany, or even a fake Western triple. So, those options were were off the table. Instead, England was more simple in his plans, in his negotiations, probably because English is not his main language, but he was very straightforward. He would get to the point. He said, look, we can collaborate, we can go against France, also go against Russia, and you could put me in Belgium, then slowly but steadily we get control of France, we do an equal division of centers, and maybe we can even get Italy on board to help us. So he wouldn't do it was normal stuff. It wasn't that complicated. Doc would propose these plans like French Union into Munich, or always the Western triple, or he was more original in his negotiations, but I thought that they were all in the long term good for him and not really good for me. And so in the end, I haven't made my mind right away in spring 1901, but I was already going in the EG direction at that point, but wasn't sure about it yet.
Okay. So England said that because you're on a European time zone, you guys were able to communicate right away. And he felt a very high level of comfort with you, and that you gave him that level of comfort. Um, and it was almost on sort of day one. But what I'm hearing is, yeah, you were that way with England, but you were keeping your options open with either Russia or France just to see. But you lean towards England for sure.
Yes, certainly the time zone factor was not unimportant. It was certainly a factor in this. It was comfortable to talk with someone in the morning. He was the only person I could talk to in the morning, while the others were sleeping, and I had to wait for until 2 or 4 in the afternoon. So it was a bit uncomfortable. With him, I had much more time to communicate with.
And
So yes, I certainly kept my options open, and I was keeping. Also, there was always the possibility of EF. So in that case, I would have Russia's backing. We had agreed that in case of EF, I would let him into Sweden, and he would help me out in this sense.
so, when you talked about your communications with Russia, that you were a little vague. Austria said in his interview about you that his problem with you was Austria wanted clarity, and you were really good about never lying to him, but never being fully clear on what you were going to do. Is that true? And was that sort of an intentional strategy with some powers?
No, that was true, because especially at the beginning, I was very unclear, except with France and England, but even with France and England to a certain degree, because I felt that I was the key man in resolving the West. So what I said, that France would say I'm allied with Germany, and the same thing would England say, but I was very ambiguous. I wouldn't say who I would go with at the beginning, um, especially to Austria, Russia, and Turkey, and all the others that weren't France and England. So also later in the game, I would be ambiguous on certain topics. That's simply because I don't trust people with information very often. So unless I'm collaborating strictly with someone, I'm not going to share much information unless it's really necessary.
I mean, uh, you won this game, and we're going to get into how you won it. But I kind of want to ask you why you think you won it. You were the board leader for
Mhm.
a long time. And my own theory is that you didn't make a lot of enemies. I mean, you had enemies and you did fight, but uh, that was your greatest attribute.
Yes. Yes, my social. I put a lot of effort in my social game. In fact, there was only one person who hated me the whole game, and that was England. England was the only. I tried making peace with England several times after I stabbed them, but always failed. While with the others, I may have lied to them, I may have done something unreliable to them, but not as much as others. For example, the Austria Italy relationship was pretty much terrible almost the
Right,
whole game.
right.
And then Austrian Russia relationship, which was very strong at the beginning, broke down at a certain point. And it
Austria
was
Turkey was bad, and
and
Italy was
yeah, and also Austria Turkey in the end proved decisive. So the fact is that I try to first of all act in a bothering way towards someone in the sense of stabbing him or doing something else or doing damage towards someone. Uh, the less the less the less in the less possible way. So I stabbed I've done two really big stabs in this game, and were the only and those were enough to win, which were the stab against England, and then this sort of stab against Italy, which looks like going into Venice, but is it also consists in going into Burgundy, which and improving my position in France, which was terrible at the time, and I was about to lose everything there.
all right. So let's get into it. Very standard opening
Yes.
in the beginning. You couldn't have really hoped for more, except for maybe England to commit a little bit more against France. But other than that, it looks great.
Yeah, I knew that Doc was going to support himself into Burgundy, so there was no point to start off with to do Munich Burgundy to try and bounce him. And also, even by bouncing him, I would have been committing right away, and I would be giving Belgium to England. So I still wanted to leave all options open at the time. I didn't insist on England moving to the channel because the same way that I didn't want to commit, I expected him to not commit the same way, right? Because I thought that was the right way to play things in a final. Act at the beginning very cautiously and see how things play out. And also, he struck me as a very cautious player. So I mentioned the possibility, but he said right away, no, I prefer not to. So I didn't insist on that.
First big decision. There's two big decisions here. Uh, I'll take the easier big decision first, which in my mind, tell me if it's the harder one. Whether to bounce Russia and Sweden, which you decided to do.
Yes. So mm, at that point, and during spring 1901 and during fall 1901, I decided to go with England in the end. I preferred him over Doc. So I wanted to do an EG alliance. And during an EG alliance, I wanted to start out looking at what centers do I need to win. So I knew that the tournament winning number was around 910 in the 910 range. And Sweden is one of those, has to be one of those centers, especially in a AG alliance. In a FG alliance, I would give Sweden to Russia usually. But in this case, I wanted to make things faster. I didn't want to. Also, I usually ask Austria if what he thinks about since he was also allied. Sort of, I knew that there was an air going on against Turkey, and I wanted to ask him, how do you see Russia with another build? And he told me, I prefer not to. For me, Austria-German relations are very important. As
Bobo said this in his interview. Your fellow countryman Bobo made the point very clearly that Germany and Austria should try to work together as much as they can in the early.
Yeah, I agree completely. I agree. If Austria dies, it's the end for Germany. So I would be constantly trying to find out what was happening in the East, if Austria was in trouble. I will also, later in the game, also try to find out, trying to understand if Austria is actually becoming too powerful, but that's another topic of conversation. And so everything led to bounce Russia and Sweden at that point. So it was the most logical thing to do.
Did you tell him you were bouncing him?
What?
Did you tell Ewok that you were bouncing?
No. I didn't want to risk him going in Baltic.
Right.
I felt that he thought he was going into Sweden, also because he made this offer of leaving Sweden to go to Norway, and to go to Norway and then leave Sweden to me. But I thought that, yeah, that was a good option. But at that point, I have to be playing an FG alliance, which I wasn't willing to do at the moment. So I had to lie to him about Sweden because I fear he went to Baltic, and he wasn't the only one I committed against too. Also, Belgium was
that's the next big decision, yes, right?
Because it's a hot topic,
right? I mean, first of all, you support the convoy in. I guess you had to worry about Munich a little bit, but I assume you felt that was probably okay. I mean, and that is obviously telling Doc you're not on his side at that point.
Yeah, so Doc and I, in the end, agreed to just bounce in Belgium, just do a double, triple bounce, whatever it would have been, to keep England only with one build, because I told him I didn't want 3 builds right away, and also it depended how I wanted to deal Sweden. So so we could see who to give Belgium to later on based on how the board shapes, and he was okay with it. But what England told me was, I never knew if this was true or not. It might have been just something to make me support him or to scare me, I don't know, is that Doc offered England to move to Munich. So I knew that moving to Munich for France is just a bothering move, because Germany could easily take Munich back right after. But I didn't want to take any chances, so I said we're bouncing. And anyway, I was going to commit by supporting England into Belgium. So didn't want to risk at that point, even if I had, unfortunately, to lie to him.
Okay. How did Doc take it? And then did he try to work with you after that, or was it purely he's going in defensive mode at that point?
So at that point, things get very interesting. Doc obviously doesn't give up. He knows that England there's no chance of working with England for him since he built these two fleets, Liverpool and London, and that I was still the only one who could actually salvage his situation. But he offered me, look, you could still take Belgium. No one can stop you take Belgium. I could even support you. And we can continue as like nothing ever happened.
Right. Go to Helgoland. Everything's great.
Yes. So at the same moment, Turkey and France, who are the two victims of the board, since Turkey was the victim of the air, both start talking with England and I, both of us, saying they even say that they would have thrown the game, which it's believable until a certain point, and that we needed and Turkey would say, look, you have to start doing a Western triple. My relation with Conk was unfortunately uninteresting. We have talked a bit at the beginning, but once he became an Austrian janissary, I almost stopped talking with him completely because I knew that everything I would tell Turkey, he would have told Austria. So I didn't want to risk that. And so Turkey would try to send me these messages, first saying to ally with Doc against England. Then he would say, look, I would think you should form a Western triple. And I said, no, I'm not going to form a Western triple. It's against all my interests. And he would insist when I would talk to him during my bedtime around midnight 30. And
he's just getting warmed up at that point.
Yeah, so he didn't write really long messages. Maybe he did at the beginning, but I politely declined all the offers he sent me.
For those people who've never been in a finals game, will you agree with me that you will never experience more communications or press in any regular online diplomacy game other than a finals? The amount of press is overwhelming. I can't imagine.
It's ridiculous.
Your Discord and inbox in the morning when you woke up must have been insane.
Yeah, it's it's ridiculous. Also, I would have trouble concentrating on school until the resolution of the turn. So I would start studying only in the evening after resolution. It's because everyone was committed in playing. Everyone wanted to win. And the only way to have a chance of winning is putting a lot of effort into it.
What are you studying, by the way?
What?
What are you studying?
Oh, I'm studying. I'm in this sort of high school, classical high school. So I'm studying Latin, Greek, some.
How old are you?
I'm almost 18.
Oh my God. You look older. You act older. You're very mature. I have an 18-year-old. She couldn't be doing this. I have a 15-year-old. He'd want to play Fortnite. It's even more impressive to me. You've done more
I don't have
than I've done my entire career. Okay, but it's just high school. It'll be okay. All right. So let's move on to the spring, and you press the attack and you set yourself up for Sweden. It's beautiful. You take Burgundy, and there's nothing Doc could have done.
Yes, here the the only point of doubt was if to move Holland to Ruhr, but that maybe it would have been more practical in several ways. But I thought that it would psychologically it would not be ideal to leave these too many centers open. I mean, I was planning later on to also leave Denmark open since I would have taken Sweden with that. So I didn't want to leave Holland right away. And apart from that, Italy builds the second fleet, and we start discussing to use that fleet against France. In fact, talks with Italy intensify, and yes, in this season, the orders here were terrible.
You could have you figured out the convoy the next year.
Yeah, we figured out the convoy next year, but here the fact was there was like half an hour left to resolution, and we still haven't had a definitive plan. I knew that France was going to do exactly these moves because they were the most logical. So I told England, look, you have to move the channel to mid-Atlantic and to use North Sea to bounce Brest. And he said, I would insist on this. And he said, no, let's play it cautiously. Let's wait. And I said, look, he's just going to cut support for Picardy, so it's useless to. We'll just be blocked. We'll just be wasting a turn. He said, no, don't worry. If we do things too fast, then the whole board will look at us. So let's wait and see how things develop, and let's wait for Italy to come in with his fleet. And I probably should have insisted more on moving the channel to mid-Atlantic, but at that point,
you're still early with them, and you want to solidify it.
Yeah, so I just went for it, even if I knew that it would have been blocked easily.
Okay, so you build the army, which makes sense given what you are doing, and you take the board lead with Austria. And as we move into the spring,
yes,
there's lots of things to talk about, but the first thing is Tyrolia.
Okay, this is interesting. So at this point, Austria stabbed Italy, and it's funny because Italy, the same turn in which Austria stabbed, he said, look, I have a feeling Austria is going to take Trieste. Are you willing to go in Tyrolia if he does? And I said, are you sure Austria is going to take Trieste? Because I've actually asked Austria if he intended to do it, and he said, no, not yet, at least. And that was one of the few lies Austria actually told me the whole game, I think, it seemed to me. But this was certainly the first one. And so Italy said was very worried. It happened. Austria took Trieste. At that point, Italy immediately offered to go in Tyrolia. I tried convincing Austria. I was very upset by the stab. Russia and maybe someone else thought it was just a show. It was just all planned out. The bounce was fake. But I was actually very concerned of this Austrian-Italian conflict, and I saw no good scenario coming out of it in any case. Either Austria gobbles up Italy and England becomes the main naval power at that point, since we were killing off France. Or there was also the risk that a juggernaut formed, and I didn't know at the time that the Village Idiot and Conk couldn't work together.
Right.
So I consider them as normal players who could form a juggernaut at any moment. So I was also scared of that Austria would be attacking Italy while he hasn't resolved his triangle first. And I told Austria, look, I'm going to bounce you in Tyrolia because I don't want you attacking Italy in this moment. And Austria would get so mad, he would say, no, you have to let me deal with Italy. Don't worry, Turkey will be the new Mediterranean power. And I didn't want Turkey as the main Mediterranean power. He would say, oh, he's going to help you with Spain and Portugal. Yeah, but how much time will that take? It will take too much time. So it's not really worth it. And also it's bad for you as Austria to have Turkey in that position. So he was stubborn about it. But but since I told him I was going to bounce him in Tyrolia, I actually feared that he would not let me, that he would let me in and then put pressure from Bohemia, which he then confirmed in his interview. So he said, look, are you going to, he asked me several times, are you going to, he also tried to convince me not to bounce him in Tyrolia. And I wanted to make sure I bounced him and screwed his plans against Italy in this sense. So I told him, look, okay, I'm letting you in Tyrolia, but I'm not happy at all about this. And I don't think it's the right decision. I hope you will change your mind later on. And then I bounced him in Tyrolia.
And welcome Stitches, who can join in anytime he wants. We can't hear him quite yet because he's on mute, but if he joins, he can ask any question he wants if he can hear us. But you knew you were sacrificing Burgundy to do that, which probably was a good trade-off, but I think that surprised a lot of people.
Yes, I thought it was necessary at that point to sacrifice. It was the price to pay because Italy was really about to die at that point. It was if I hadn't bounced Tyrolia, he was dead. With Vienna and Tyrolia, with Tyrolia, Trieste, also Naples, he will have taken 2 centers from him. So it would have been the end for Italy, and Burgundy could have been recaptured the next season. So it wasn't really a problem for me to lose it.
So England told me at this point he was really frustrated with you. Really frustrated because you didn't want to move to Gulf of Bothnia or Finland.
Oh yeah.
And which meant that he could not get St. Petersburg, and his momentum and tempo is really slowed down. So is that, I mean, I assume that's true that you wouldn't do that because you didn't do it, but what were you thinking?
Yeah, so at this point, we have to talk a bit about my relationship with Russia at this point.
Sure.
I was you could see in various moments of the game in which our fleets in the north do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
The reason was that I tried to convince Russia to turn on Austria, especially when Austria was so stubborn about attacking Italy. I wanted Russia to then convince Austria that attacking Italy was the wrong choice. I mean, one reason why I think Austria stabbed Italy was that Russia made a proposal to me saying, look, what do you say of a Russian, German, Italian alliance against Austria and England and whoever is left on the board? Basically, he wanted to do a wintergreen with me in the middle of it. And so I didn't like that at all. And I was thinking of Austria's well-being. I told him, look, there's a wintergreen cooking up. Be careful about it. And then Austria stabbed Italy, getting Trieste. So I still try to convince Russia to go against Austria. He doesn't. That's why I hold off the fleets. And what I told England was that getting St. Petersburg, there was time to do that, and also getting it with the fleet would have been very effective. Maybe it would have been effective in terms of builds, but it's not very useful. And I need Russia to go against Austria right now.
Of course, here Warsaw
I
moved to Silesia, though. Did you know that?
yeah, yes. Warsaw holded for a while there.
For,
I don't
for a
remember
long
why.
time.
Yeah, I don't remember why exactly I hold there. But yeah, at that point, Russia decided to continue collaborating with Austria. Here, I knew that Russia was going to do that bounce in Livonia, and I was very tempted of doing the malicious support and letting England in, but I passed that on.
So the other thing I want you to address is Tom. In Tom's interview, he basically said, I was writing Germany's orders, I was writing England's orders, I was slowing down EG by leaking everything to France. Is that true, untrue, or in the middle somewhere?
So mm, certainly Tom did say that there was later on there's this yeah, I think the next season there's this when I get Paris, that malicious support trick, that was his idea. But for the rest, I don't know. We haven't. I don't seem to recall we actually discussed specific moves. Maybe in general what we would have done, but
I think he said that he engineered this dislodgement of Burgundy,
yeah.
uh, the whole process. But it's sort of obvious that that would probably happen.
Yeah, I knew that Burgundy was. Yeah, he knew that I was not going to defend Burgundy because I had to bounce in Tyrolia. So, yeah, he may have said to France that, look, Burgundy is free, but apart, certainly he didn't know about the Holland convoy. At least that was how I remember. But apart from that, there isn't much he actually told us about.
Okay, hey, Hand, welcome. Don't kill anybody while you're doing this interview in your car.
I won't.
All right, so Kutusov here was just talking about Tom, and
Uh,
he said that Tom did on the malicious support, but probably didn't give Tom as much influence into things that Tom said he did. Just to give you some context of where we're at.
right. So I mean, I guess my question is, was he kind of allowing Tom to think this and sandbagging him to some extent, making him kind of think he was in control?
Well, Tom likes to feel he's in control. That's one reason why my stab, my latest when I take Venice and Burgundy was so effective, because I made him think he was in control. I suspect there's something that, in hindsight, there's something he actually said that should have made me think he was feeding moves to France. That he seemed very confident I would take Paris, like he was sure about it. So I should have suspected of that something was not right. I did think that something was not right, but I didn't make the right. I didn't think that he was feeding France our moves at that point. But yeah, it was certainly a way for Tom to have control in the West. He certainly didn't want EG to progress so fast. He wanted to slow it down at the beginning. And but now that Austria was attacking him, he didn't really care much about it anymore. And he certainly did, but he had other things to think about.
So
Yes, here.
in the fall, you do begin to make the move on Russia after he made the move on you first, but you retake Burgundy and you get the fantastic retreat into Paris.
Yes, here it's interesting because EVR tells me, look, you have to deal with England. England is becoming too powerful. You have to turn on him. And I said, I'm not going to turn on him if you're sending units against Italy or against me. So there's no way I'm going to do that at the moment. And he said, fine. And at that point, I expected him to do the Tyrolia trap. Italy said that, yeah, probably Austria was just going to Bohemia and that I should bounce him, but I didn't want to risk that. I don't remember why Italy supported me anyway in Tyrolia. I think he just did that as a way of holding. And Italy, and I was aware, and Austria told me, look, since, Austria wanted me to stab England. And I said, look, there have to be some conditions for that. First of all, you have to hold off your attack on Italy. You have to give him some breathing room. You have to go back collaborating with him again. And Austria accepted that, but he still moved to Bohemia because he thought I needed pressure on my borders and that I wasn't able, and I was just saying to get what I wanted, et cetera, et cetera. So we go against Russia. I get the Gulf of Bothnia, and this was a fantastic turn for me. Also because Mid-Atlantic goes to North Atlantic, creating a problem in Liverpool. So I was really happy of how this turn went overall.
Yeah, weakened England, who's relying on you. You get Paris. It really could not have been better. Italy's got to worry about Austria. They look like they get it together. You may have won the game here, even pre-stab.
Well, certainly it was helpful to make me win the game, but not yet. I haven't won it yet.
So I asked England at this point, look, you're already up to France is going to take Liverpool. You can move to Finland here, and he was just very frustrated that you didn't seem to care about his center cap, which makes sense given that you're not playing England in this game. But how were you able to manage that relationship and that frustration?
So I remember that there was this discussion around Finland, and
here you could have moved right here.
Yes, and I think because I still hoped for Russia to stab, and I was willing to give him that time to stab. Before the time frame that I gave Russia was until England has an army to convoy to Norway and to take St. Petersburg with, you have to stab Austria at this time. I'm willing to slow things down against you. What I told England was that, yes, I don't feel that comfortable in moving Sweden to Finland, which is true because at this point I was starting to leave my back pretty open. I have Holland unoccupied, Denmark was free. If I also left Sweden, there was not much stopping England from doing a 3-center stab. So it's not that I like the view of it, also because 3 centers is always better than getting St. Petersburg and Brest. So the numbers were against me. So I decided to keep Sweden and wait for the army to convoy. But now that I think about it, my actual first proposal was to start demilitarizing the North Sea. I said we could, if you really want St. Petersburg that badly, there's no reason why we shouldn't do Norway to Barents and North Sea to Norway, and then it will be easy to get St. Petersburg in the fall. I can't get North Sea in any case, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I don't know. He didn't want to do it, so
He said that that suggestion came like 15 minutes before adjudication, and he was worried because you also insisted Belgium move to Picardy, that he would be moving all the units away, and he would set himself up for a stab.
set him. Yeah, but I mean to set up. I mean,
You have a lot
there's
of
no,
armies. You don't have a lot of fleets to put to stab
yeah,
him.
there's no implicit way of setting up the stab. I mean, if I'm setting up, it's visible that I'm setting up. So I don't know. Yeah, probably it was. I did make that offer 15 minutes before. So yeah, the time was certainly a factor. I think that if he thought about it more, he would have done it. But well, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, in the end, he's the one who's losing St. Petersburg, not me. So it wasn't really a problem for me.
That's my point, right? You're not playing England.
Yes.
You're playing Germany. So
I have a question too. Just going back a tiny bit, I was really puzzled because when you were talking about Austria worried about England becoming too strong this early in the game, and he said this too, but what do you think was behind that? Because to me,
Austria
Austria
wants
should be,
to.
Austria should be celebrating England's strength. They should be wanting England to outpace you to a certain extent. It's kind of a natural geopolitical ally. So I was wondering what the motivation there might have been, because I didn't really understand it when he was saying it.
No, Austria just wanted me to turn my back so that he could attack me.
Is that what it is?
He even confirmed that to me after the game. That was basically the reason why he wanted me to attack England. And I really didn't understand. I thought that it was pretty forced, the fact that he wanted to attack me at all costs, as Austria attacking Germany that early. I think that if he hadn't attacked me and concentrated more on Turkey and Russia, he would have done much better.
I
Yeah.
agree.
That's really weird. Usually Austria doesn't want to do anything with Germany until it's time for a solo. And to want England to go down is just crazy to me.
I know he moved to Bohemia 3 different times this game, and
I know.
Bohemia, which we discussed, is like that's like an end game tile. It's very strange. Probably his biggest mistake.
all right, so
Yeah.
moving into the fall, I think you're right, Alessandro, that England would have, if he had more time to think about it, maybe would have gone to Barents and Norway, because I think he did it, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't do it in the fall, but he did do it in 05. Here you move back, though. You move the fleet back to Baltic.
Yes. Yeah, this was sort of a show. Russia starts saying, look, I might stab Austria getting Budapest, even if later, yes, we find out that that was, even England told me at the time that that was arranged. But it seemed to be like extremely weird to just give up Budapest just to make a point, just to create a show, just to continue attacking me so that I attack England. I mean, that it was so weird that I actually thought that at the time that the stab was real, even if some people would say it was set up, because I would never go along with something like that. It was way too. I mean, it was putting so much trust in Russia. So yeah, the reason why I knew that as soon as Russia stabbed, I will still continue attacking him if the chance came. So and moving to Baltic didn't really. Since it was also the fall and we couldn't take St. Petersburg, moving to Baltic wasn't really a costly move. I wasn't going to do anything with that fleet at the moment anyway. So, yeah.
Okay, so what did you think of England's move to Belgium?
No, England's move to Belgium was agreed. we agreed that, like he said in his interview, that if France kept the fleet in Liverpool, he would have convoyed it back to Yorkshire, so that, and he would have gotten built, so he would get Liverpool back. Otherwise, he would convoy directly to Norway. So yeah, it was agreed.
Okay. And I assume at this point you thought your relationships with Tom were pretty strong because you helped him into Marseille.
Yes, Tom wanted his share of the centers, and I didn't have any. Yeah, I said sure, I'll support you to Marseille, and I knew that England, and we start actually talking about going against England at this point, since his situation with Austria is pretty much settled. So we start talking about it. England was getting Spain, and there was this deal he told me about. England gets Spain, but then moves to Portugal, and Tom gets Spain. And we were starting to work things out with him.
So this sets up your well, you had a lot of good years. You won, but 05 has to be a great year. Here, you look like you're all in against Russia at this point.
Yeah, I was I was actually about to do another set of moves here, but then I thought, I was actually thinking at this point of stabbing England, because he was gaining 2 builds. His position was undoubtedly pretty good, and knowing the player, he's very cautious, and stabbing him later with another 2 builds would have been virtually impossible. And also, yeah, England would have been in a good position. He could have stabbed me at any moment. And so it seemed the most logical thing to do here. It was to solve the English situation. So yeah, you see all these support orders saying, oh, I want to act cautiously, but I didn't want to go all in on Russia because I had to think about England.
And well, the genius part was really delaying and not and basically telling England you're going to have to get to St. Petersburg for yourself. Like that, you weren't going to really assist. You needed to get an army in. He only had one army other than the one that was needed to get back to Liverpool, and that was Belgium. And he convoys away, giving you a very good opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, getting St. Petersburg with the fleet doesn't really accomplish anything in EG terms. So I thought, yeah, if you really insist on it, but at the same time, I need Russia to deal with Austria at the moment. So if
Did
we
you
hold
know you were
that,
going to stab right after these orders adjudicated?
well, yeah, the stab was, I still thought about it a lot, if to stab or not. It was a very controversial decision for me. But because there were various factors to think about. Like, first of all, I would be the board leader by a lot, and I would put a big target on my back that also had to be pretty coordinated. I had to France gets dislodged here in the channel, and he tells me, look, I'm going to go into Belgium. You could stop. You could bounce me. I hope you don't. But if you let me into Belgium, I think we can collaborate. And at that point, I tell him, no. What about if I support you into Brest, so that because I want. I think that supporting you into Brest is better. I don't want you into Belgium because it's next to Holland, next to the North Sea, and other stuff. And he said, okay, I'll move to Brest. I tell England, and here I say, look, yeah, because since France was the fact that France was in the channel was pretty important, because England had to cover London and Belgium. So I asked England, look, I don't want France into Belgium. And at the same time, since you're about to get St. Petersburg and Liverpool, and also Portugal, because Italy, the deal was that Italy would have supported him into Portugal. I told England, look, since you're going +2 and I'm not growing +0, even if the center count is uneven, I don't really, and well, it's uneven. We're 6-7, which let's say that since England is in a corner position, it's pretty even to me. And I was in the middle of all the action. I was the one really committing myself a lot. So I tell him, look, France might move to London or Belgium. What about if I go to Belgium, and if I get it, good. We both get a build. We're still pretty even. I might even support you to Moscow if you want next when the chance comes. Well, after I get Warsaw, and then we could start thinking about moving against Tom in the Mediterranean. And otherwise, I'll just bounce France. So England accepted. He said, "Okay, it's fine with me. You could move to Belgium. So in the case you get in, we both get one build. Otherwise, you bounce France out, and that's good." I then told Tom that a stab was boiling, and that there was this possibility, and that I needed him not. That it would be better if he didn't support England and Portugal. And I think I told him that was the best for both of us. That we both didn't want England to grow that fast. That it was against both of our interests. And he said, "Okay, I'm not going to support." England to Portugal. In fact, he did that the famous miss order, and yeah,
It was just cruel what he did.
yeah. So at that point, I decided to go for it. I suspected, I wasn't sure, but I've heard something. I don't remember from who, that Russia might move to Vienna. I wasn't sure about it, but if that happened, I thought, okay, that would be perfect for me if I stab. I also, because Go Horns Go, you in your commentary you said that this was a stab of necessity. This was a stab of necessity. I thought that I had to do this stab, otherwise this was the last chance to do an effective and good stab, the best possible on England.
Everything hit right for you, because
yeah,
the Ewok admitted that if he knew this was coming, he would not have moved to Vienna. But he moved to Vienna because he didn't think it was coming. It's just you got everything at the right way. And Marianne, as England said, if you had not done it, he was going to stab you in 06. I don't know if you heard.
Perfect. Yeah. I knew he was going to stab me, because it's funny because then England would be so mad at me and say, how could you stab me so early? We're not even in 08 yet.
Yeah, I didn't want to point that out to him, that he harbored a lot of hatred for you when he himself was planning to do the same thing at this moment when he got all these builds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't really see how that has never stopped. That has absolutely never stopped anyone from being resentful in this game.
Well, the fact is that the people on the board always had a different enemy other than me, except maybe for England. But there was this constant Austrian-Italian conflict, and also Austrian-Russian conflict. So even if I was the board leader, at this point, Austria and I start collaborating very closely until the end of the game. And at this point, I try to keep good relations with everybody, because I know that the social aspect will be very important at the end. And Tom and I was not sure if Tom would have really gone against England at this point, but I still told him, look, you have Spain, you could get Portugal, and then I could also support you into Brest if you want. So it seemed after the stab, they tried to, let's say, England tried to form this grand coalition against me, but he didn't find people really interested, because no one was looking at the big threat, but everyone was looking at their close problems. Russia had now a problem with Austria. Austria had a problem with Italy and Russia. And Italy, well, he had sort of this Austrian problem, and he had to first deploy to go against me. So at this point, it's only England and I.
He had no friend. Well, he got Italy eventually, but
yeah, he eventually
Italy was fighting with everybody too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you must have. I'm actually kind of somewhat surprised that you took the risk of telling Italy about the stab on England. I mean, it really paid off, and you made the right call. But it seems like you were aware that he was somewhat promiscuously flitting about the board, and there's so often a significant line of communication between Russia and Italy. So, I mean, Tom seems almost like someone you feed misinformation, knowing that he's going to repeat it everywhere. Were you not kind of worried about that risk, or do you trust him to keep this information to himself?
Yes, well, I put Italy in. I knew that he might have leaked that information, so I put in a certain way. I said, look, maybe I will stab England. I'm thinking about it, but in any case, I think you shouldn't support. It's probably about stabbing England, but the best thing for both of us, since England then said he wants to go after you, and a lot of fleets England is not good for either of us, you shouldn't support him into Portugal, and you should just let him bounce on that army. The wintergreen wasn't that close at the time; it was close earlier. But yeah, Tom was also pissed off that a real wintergreen never really formed. But yeah, it was also one of those things they told in when 1 hour was left, not much time. So yeah.
Well, in a game of almost no alliances, your alliance is the only one, even though you stabbed, that ended up being in large measure the cause of you winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought that with the builds I had, with the units I had, in any case, there wouldn't have been not as many enemies to counter me. Or maybe they could limit me, but not like I wouldn't start losing centers, in my opinion, or losing centers in a drastic way, at least.
I mean, you're at 9 in winter of 05. Without a lot of enemies, except for England, who's crippled. France, obviously, is a wild card. Italy, maybe, but your whole game has to be here about keeping it together, which you managed to do.
Yes. At this point, even if I went down a couple of centers, which was actually, as planned. I thought that, yeah, people will start going against me. I may lose something. But as soon as I started losing something and someone else started gaining and someone else started getting attention, I thought that I still had a good shot at winning it. And another thing that's interesting is that in this game, people would look more at the position and the center and potentially how many centers someone could get more than the center count, as it's right to do in a high level diplomacy game. So in some moments it seemed, and I obviously tried to make it more evident to take attention away from me, that some moments Italy had a better position and could have won. Austria even a lot of times had a much better position, and potentially he could have gotten many more centers than I had. So that certainly was an advantage. A downside was, yeah, after the stab, my diplomatic leverage on other people was pretty low. It was one of the effects of the stab I expected and hoped to get that diplomatic leverage as soon as possible, and it did at a certain point, as we'll see.
Okay, so I'm you're here in 06, both with these moves, and here in the fall, committing against Russia and England at the same time.
Yes. So at the time, first of all, I didn't really trust Russia. I wasn't sure about his intentions, and I thought that he was the one controlling England in this moment, because England started collaborating with would start collaborating with someone, and I thought it was Russia.
It was, yeah, because England had said in his podcast that Russia was feeding him a lot of information and a lot of consolation and just talking him through everything since he got stabbed pretty hard. So you're right there.
Yeah. So I decided, even if I had this, and also I wanted to save Austria at the same time. If I had left Russia and used my units in another way, I think that Austria would have been dead. Russia would have used his units just to kill Austria off, and that would have been the end for me too. So yes, I still send units against Russia, and in this season, yeah.
Well, we have the Italian entry against you.
Yes.
Did you know he was moving to Burgundy? Otherwise, you may not have covered Belgium, thinking the English channel had to cover London.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a fun story. So the season before, Italy and I were collaborating. We were saying, okay, let's move. I was not that happy that Italy would waste his chances in getting into mid-Atlantic. He could have done it way before this, and he didn't, like Alicia's hand said in the podcast. And at this point, the season before, I also went to Tyrolia because I didn't really trust Italy much, and I thought, okay, if Italy is going to go there, I'll bounce him. If I get in there, there's no problem because I can't really do any damage to Italy, and willingly, since he still has the army in Venice. So it's just I don't think that Tom will be that mad at me if I do. Tom, he gets very upset about it, and I think that for him, the fact that I moved to Tyrolia was an excuse so that he wouldn't tell me what his orders were. Because I think at this point he was thinking, since I was the board leader and no one was going against me, he was thinking, okay, I think I have to get England on side against Germany. And he thought, okay, this is the excuse that I'll use, in which I won't tell. I'll stop discussing details with Germany. Also, Tom said, "Don't worry. I prefer not telling you what I'm going to do, but don't worry. The important thing is that you give me breast." And I say, "No, I don't want to give you breast because first of all, I need the fleet. I need the French fleet. It's the whole reason why I saved him, and I prefer you getting breast later on." And he said, "No, don't worry. I'll be getting into Mid-Atlantic Ocean." And I said, "How are you going to get into Mid-Atlantic Ocean? England is in there." And he said, "Oh, I'm going to give England a bill. I'm going to let him into Spain and give him a bill." And I said, "What?" Like, we are supposedly collaborating against England, and you want me to give you breast to get give you breast, and the French fleet gets destroyed, and you're also giving England a build. And so we start talking, and the fact is that we actually started talking about it at 1 hour at the end, as usual. Tom, yeah, he started complaining about this with me, but yeah, it was actually a pretty interesting strategy, but sometimes it just wasn't my fault. He would keep things to me, and only at the end, towards when we got close to resolution, I got close to actually figuring out what Tom was going to do. So there was
Imagine
that.
what would have happened if you would have gone into Venice now.
Oh yeah, that was that was certainly a possibility. Didn't really know if I should go for it or not, but I didn't want to mess up relations with Tom. In fact, when I get breast now, that was not intentional. I didn't want to get breast. I thought I was bouncing
In Belgium.
Tom.
Oh, you thought you were
It was-
bouncing Tom and Gascony. Okay, yeah. Gascony would.
yeah, I thought Gaskin was moving to breast because it got down really at the last seconds before resolution. And I thought that he put his orders in. I didn't really make it clear if he was getting breast or not. And I thought he put his orders at that point of going into breast. So, and also I knew, also Tom told me England's moves. So I knew that England was going to London and was going to Edinburgh. Another reason why they did Holland to North Sea and North Sea to Norwegian to get in position. And I told France to move to England, to the channel, so that we would be in a good position against England. Only that the problem is that I got breast when I shouldn't have. Even I knew that I was going down one and it wasn't a problem for me. I would just disband in Livonia. So not really a problem, but I thought I was bouncing Tom there. So
And did you tell? And you told Doc that? I assume.
yeah, I told Doc, but Doc didn't believe me. he thought I wanted his center.
I actually had a bit of a critique of Italy's play here, and actually my co-commentators disagreed, as did Tom, but I kind of wanted to bounce it off of you, because to me, I think Italy's failure, it was paradoxically going against you too early without support, and then in fact, if he had concentrated on his fleet up the Atlantic, kind of surrounding you some more, staying on side, staying ambiguous, it would have been better for him. What do you think of that, or do you think that your ears were already correct, that you were already suspecting him too much for you to
Yes.
work with him in a way that would have benefited him?
Yeah, the offer I gave Italy was to have the whole Iberian Peninsula and also Brest. But Brest, I said, I can't give it to you immediately, but it's certainly yours next year or the year after. So you're still getting your share of the centers, only that
I think that is a good point.
You're breaking up, Hand. Go, yeah. Oh well. All right. As he just wants you to say that he was right. Okay, so as we go
Yeah,
into,
He's gonna say he's right because it's in his best interest.
as we go into 07, I assume you knew you were going to lose the North Sea, or tried to cut.
Yeah, I didn't really have a move to do with the North Sea. I just said, oh, I'll just, yeah, I knew I was losing at this point, so it wasn't really important what to do with it.
And
This is,
the retreat was to Denmark. You heard us debate this over and over and over again.
yeah, I thought, yeah, that the retreat was to Denmark was the best thing, because I had to decide between Holland and Denmark, I think. Heligoland or Skagerrak, I thought, yeah, that I would still, I mean, I can't leave those two centers open. I mean, it would become a guessing game at that point. So I didn't really want to do that. So I decided to go to Denmark, because at that point, if I retreat to Holland, Denmark would be uncovered, while Holland could still be covered thanks to Ruhr.
Well, I think Hand and Stitches and myself, we all loved the shift to the west here and getting St. Petersburg as a pass through. Did you tell Doc you were moving to Paris? I mean, talk about some of why you did what you did here. It's just, I think it really solidified your weak position in the West against a very passive Russia.
Yeah, so Russia at this point is threatening of throwing centers to me. And he said, look, I have to make a point. And Austria won't stop attacking me. So I want you to you could get St. Petersburg if you want. But please go back off a bit from Silesia and Prussia, because, I feel too much pressure here. And I say, okay. And I need those units anyway to go against Italy. And is what I do. I do this shift from the east to the west. And instead in Brest, I tell Doc, look, I never wanted Brest. You can have it back. I hope you can get it back. Paris doesn't look good. So I'm going to move to Paris. Probably I'll get bounced. I hope it doesn't get bounced, so that you can get Brest. And then later, you should be able to help me defend Paris. At this point, I know that Doc is talking with Italy and England, but Doc seems to not stand Italy either. Like, he finds it too
He
unreliable.
did not like Italy. He confirmed.
I like Italy.
Yeah. So I knew that he didn't like Italy, and I trusted him in helping to save Paris. I mean, it was my only chance. He was my only chance to save Paris. So I told him, okay, if you want to screw Italy, that's the best way you can do it. Later on, when he cuts Gascony, and he does it. So yeah, the fact is that Italy tells friends that they're not going to kill him off. And I told Doc, it's obvious they're going to kill you off at this point. There's no way, you're not useful to them. They're not going to keep you alive. Doc says that Italy should have stabbed here in fall 1907. I don't agree. I think that if Italy stabbed England at this point, it would have been terrible for Italy. Because at that point, England would have, in position, I would have all these, England will lose builds. We'll have to disband. You'll probably have to disband some fleets. I have fleets in Scandinavia, and I would be the dominant naval power in the north, and I could easily use England as a janissary and then get his centers right off him easily. So yeah, I think that Tom did the right choice to not stab England here. I understand that it was Doc's only chance to survive, but it was still the right choice for Italy.
The first of many good how Belgium never fell to the Italians is a work of art. that
Oh,
I mean,
we lost Belgium 4 or 5 times. This is reprehensible. But
Yeah,
good
we'll
job.
talk about Belgium next year.
you moved to Tyrolia, and yet you're it bounces, but you're also again the beneficiary of Austrian-Russian hatred, because Russia clearly at this point, after you moved, was ready to make a move on you, supports himself into Silesia, but Austria does not follow it up to Bohemia, and instead would rather go to war with Russia. This has just got to be so wonderful for you.
Oh, yes. I was talking about before that my diplomatic leverage was very low at the time because I just started. After this turn, it skyrocketed. Like it reached the peak of, even though I was the board leader, everyone was asking me favors. Russia was asking me, look, I made a mistake. We shouldn't have attacked each other. Please steal Austria. Please retreat to Bohemia. I'm sorry for supporting England to St. Petersburg. I'll try to make this right and make you win. Italy is saying, oh, we have to deal with Austria. Austria took Greece away from me, supporting Turkey. Actually, Italy. I talked about Italy about this later on. He initially didn't ask me anything, but yeah. And at the same moment, I still wanted to keep good relations with Austria, and I tell him, look, initially I wanted to disband Silesia and rebuild something in Kiel instead of retreating to Bohemia. But Russia would just insist, say, please, Austria has to be stopped, or he's going to get all my centers. And at that point, I say, okay, I'm going to retreat to Bohemia, because the retreat to Bohemia would have given me a lot of diplomatic leverage. I told Austria I was going to retreat to Bohemia, and I told him, look, I have to retreat to Bohemia for diplomatic reasons, but I'll make sure I won't do any real damage to you, and we could work something out if you want.
I mean, it takes some stones, Alessandro, to retreat to Bohemia before Russia has to disband.
Well, yeah, I knew that he was going to disband Silesia.
You still have to trust him.
Well, I mean, there would be no reason to not disband Silesia, actually. So I was pretty sure he was.
Okay. But you do now have you got a fleet issue, but you've got St. Petersburg coming in 08. So there's a lot to think about. And by the way, I mean, if you listen to our podcast, we're barely talking about you, right?
It's a good thing. It means the board's barely talking about
this
you.
has got to be perfect. All the focus is on the drama in the East and what's happening, and you're like an afterthought. It had to have been perfect for you to hear that if you listened.
Yeah, it was like also in the game. Everyone was focusing on the East, and I was just, walking in and doing my stuff. So yeah, it was funny. Partly it's probably because I'm not a known player. No one knows who I am. I don't have any experience, so I was being underestimated was really a good advantage to have here.
Now, I have to ask you, you're fighting Italy over Paris, and he's supporting you into Tyrolia.
Yes, so at this point, I make things very clear. I say, look, I tell Italy and Russia, look, I'm going to deal with Austria, but Italy and at least Italy, I don't expect England to stop attacking me, but at least Italy had to stop bothering me. And he had to hold off for the moment if he wanted me to send units against Austria. Italy at the beginning wouldn't answer. He actually didn't really care. And so I tell Russia, okay, I'm not going to retreat to Bohemia. I'm going to, I mean, if they're going to attack me, I have to build in Kiel. So I can't retreat to Bohemia. So Russia starts talking to Italy, and Italy is convinced, saying, okay, we're going to collaborate if you retreat to Bohemia. I do. At this point, we start talking, and Italy says, look, I can't move on England right now. I would love to move against England, but I can't. But we have to but we still have to organize something. And I say, okay, what about if I move to Tyrolia? And Italy agreed to that. Actually, I wanted to move to Tyrolia, but Italy was the first one to propose that. So I said, okay, I took that immediately. And because I knew that once I was in Tyrolia, I had a good shot at Venice, because I was keeping good relations with Austria. And Austria was thinking that I was about to lose centers at that point, and Italy was about to gain a lot of centers. And we'll see next year why things went the way they went. So what happened in Burgundy, Paris Burgundy was organized. There were 5 minutes left, always the last minute change of orders. And Lily says, we have to organize something, we have to do something. And then we come up with Paris moves to Burgundy, Burgundy to Paris. And it looks like I countered Italy's attack when it was, it gave some ambiguity. Maybe, I think England knew that this was organized, but it still was pretty ambiguous. And yeah, the fleet to Picardy, I was scared of losing Belgium here, and I thought, okay, if I'm losing Belgium, there's nothing I could really do about it. And
Should have.
yeah, like
It's so bad.
I
Oh,
know,
good
and he
job,
still denied that that was the right move in his interview. It's so funny. Yeah.
yeah, and then
Well, we'll go to 09, which is, you know, it's a mastery of your diplomatic leverage that, you know, you convinced, you didn't even need Austria's support, as it turns out, to go to Venice, but he supported you into Venice. He's helping his rival for the board top take a center in 08.
yes, here went basically perfectly for me. I tell Italy, I mean, I start talking with Italy, and I say, look, I'm willing to, he asked me to send Munich to Bohemia. And I said, okay, I'll send Munich to Bohemia, but you have to stab England and you have to demilitarize Burgundy. And I said, and I didn't even have to tell Italy this, but this seemed actually a great deal for Italy. I even offered support for him in Brest. So, I mean, Italy would be getting Greece. He would be getting Spain. And he would be also getting Brest. That's 3 bills. And also, Italy thought that he could still make peace with England. And at the same time, there was Austria, who was worried about this. He was actually worried about what Italy was accomplishing here. And he knew that Italy was risking to be the new leader, the new board leader here. And he said, look, I think the best thing to do here is Tyrolia to Venice. And I said, okay, is support Tyrolia to Venice. And I said, yeah, okay. I don't know how I'm trying to convince Tom to not attack me, but I don't know. I think he will. That this is how the West will probably resolve, even though I'm not sure about it. I kept things very ambiguous with him because I wanted that support in Venice. So half an hour to resolution, England says England wants to be supported. He wants to do the plan Picardy to Paris and Burgundy to Belgium to secure both bills, to make sure that he lose both of them. And Tom told me about this. At this point, we start talking very closely again. And I say, and this was a problem, the fact that he wanted to take Italy to Paris, because I couldn't support him into Brest. But Tom said that was okay. And he asked me, where do you want me to send Burgundy? I said, you could send it to Gascony. I mean, it's not a problem for me. And then I started getting scared because I thought he was not going to demilitarize Burgundy in the end. And I was about to support Munich to Burgundy from rural Belgium. I think from Ruhr. And yeah, things got really tough here. It was there was the time pressure. My moves probably wouldn't have changed in any case because they were still defensive moves. But the real thing I was trying to accomplish here was not only gain one build, but also break the apparently indestructible Italian-England alliance. I wanted Italy to do this crappy stab on England, so that England will come back to be friends with me in this sense. And that's another reason why I didn't move. That why I over defended Norway, and I didn't move to Skagerrak. I didn't move to Finland, St. Petersburg like I then did later, because I wanted England to go back in good terms with me, even if in the end he didn't. But it was, for me, it was worth the try.
Well, he did, because in a sense he could have controlled whether you or Italy won the game, and he decided to pick neither of you, meaning that you could win.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it actually, the brilliance isn't that you were going to bring them onto your side, but more, you know, there's this thing, I believe in politics, they call it demobilization. So for instance, in the last election, you run ads that you're not trying to get people to vote for you, but rather make them despair that society is so corrupt that they won't even bother to vote. It kind of reminds me of that. Like, by getting Italy to stab him too, he even said it himself, he just kind of gunboated to the end. He no longer believes friendship is possible. He just kind of gives up. So it's la nausea, you know, you make people just not have the will to live anymore or to fight.
So you probably didn't like it, you know, in 09, where we're just talking about how you've got this game won and we're trying to come up with every scenario for Austria or Italy to win. But you were, I'm sure, running all those scenarios in your head at this point anyways.
Yes. So the fact was, so Austria wasn't really wasn't that happy that I got one build. He didn't expect that. And but we were still in good terms because I didn't really lie to him. I didn't say, look, I'm going to lose centers. I said, look, probably I'll lose centers, but I don't really know what's going to happen. I prefer not to tell you. And he said, okay. Here, he told me that he would be helping Italy at this point, but he said that we both didn't want Italy to win this game. I mean, Italy was sort of the least liked person here. He was unreliable.
Everybody's basically said it, so you're not saying anything new.
Yeah,
Except
so
for,
nobody wanted Italy to win at this point. And
you're on mute. You're on mute, Hand. Yeah, Italy was Italy's favorite person, but nobody else had him as a favorite.
Yes, and so Austria and I decided, look, we're going to collaborate. Collaborate in a certain sense of the word, because at the same time we were both competing for first place. But we're covering the case Italy risks to win, to limit Italy. And we were both fine for that. I mean, if I didn't win this game, I still preferred Austria to win it over Italy. So it was fine with me.
I actually have a question. I believe it might be this year. There was a 48-hour delay in turns.
Oh yeah.
How did you feel about that? Because I remember you were basically, I said that you had a sociologically 100% chance of winning at this point, as opposed to mathematically. There were routes for other powers to win. They need to communicate perfectly, and suddenly there's an extra 24 hours for them to talk about their moves against you. Me and Stitches were joking that we're kind of like maybe a little bit like disordered at times with our like want to control things, and that we would have been very upset. Like, maybe a little distraught. Were you worried? Were you worried about that extra 24 hours?
Not really. No, really.
I mean, it was Italy who asked for it, even.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Italy was offline. He wasn't available for all those 48 hours. It was I think, it was a build's turn though. It wasn't. I think it was a turn previous this one, and I think everyone just. It was so stressful that I think like almost everyone took a break for all those 48 hours. I don't think that something really got discussed or organized at that point.
That would bother me more because that would make me feel like they're just not talking to me.
Yeah, the silence is deadly. I mean, you can set your online status to as if you're not there.
Yeah,
Too.
yeah.
As we go into 09, right? Because we got to push it along a bit.
Sorry.
Really, the move to Silesia is fantastic because it's just fantastic. I mean, it's a bounce, but you kept Russia in the game, making him struggle for every center while Turkey begins to take away stuff from Austria. Just fantastic.
Is this you or Russia's idea to move to Silesia?
No, I actually was thinking of bouncing in Silesia. I knew that Austria would have tried for Silesia. I initially was opting for a bounce, but then I said, no, Russia needs to cut Galicia. I mean, Russia was very conservative of what to do, so I didn't, in the end, ask Russia to bounce in Silesia, and I was not sure if to actually risk going there myself.
Risking Munich.
I'm risking Munich, but then I mean, I'm still I mean, Austria tells me, look, I have to support Italy, and in Venice, it's nothing, I have to, it's something I have to do. I'm going to be taking Greece though. And I was happy that he told me he was going to get Greece. So it was fine with me. And he tells me, look, Bohemia will not bother Munich. And at the time, I really didn't know how to interpret this. I didn't know if it was a way for me to move to Silesia, for him to slip into Munich. But considering the relationship we had and the circumstances, I thought he was honest. And I thought that it seems too risky to just try and get into Munich instead of just going to Silesia. So at the end, I opted to risk it, and this was the only possibility of saving Russia and limiting Austria, and it worked.
Man, I mean, you were on a knife's edge. Everywhere. That was just fantastic. So, even though you had a disband, the only issue is Austria, but Turkey helped you out tremendously in spring 1910.
Yeah, so here I was after this term. So here, Italy, once Austria gets Greece, Italy starts saying, okay, I'm going to throw to Germany. Did I believe Italy? No, I didn't really believe him. I mean, I know the type of player. I don't think that Tom would just give up and throw centers so easily. So in fact, the moves I did, I would have done the moves in any case, as I was defending from him. I was defending Paris. I was not sure if to use Paris to also cut Gascony, but I thought that would have been pretty predictable, and that there was some ways of exploiting that bounce in Gascony. I would have lost Burgundy, Paris, so many things. So, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to try for Brest. If Italy lets me in, good. if Italy should, we agreed something stupid like Marseille to Piedmont, Gascony to Spain, Brest to Gascony, like something really dumb. I knew he was probably not going to do it. Oh, and it was important that England, the channel had to cut London, and I was not sure if to use Norway to North Sea, supported by Denmark. England said that he expected me to do that, and but I really didn't want to risk it. I chickened out there. Not that it would have changed anything, but I preferred not to risk it. Also because I'm not sure of Italy's position, if Italy would have really cut London. So I prefer, look, if Italy is not going to help me against England, I'm not going to bounce. I'm not going to bounce in North Sea in any case. So I prefer playing it safe here around Norway. I knew I was getting Belgium. Like Italy, actually, I mean, well, I didn't really know, but that's what Italy told me that was going to happen. And I was going to do a Holland Belgium in any case, so it was good to have Belgium towards the end.
So in the final turn where you win, did you hear EVR's interview, which I thought was hilarious, his regret of not taking Munich and not bouncing Conk and Black and having England bounce you in Belgium? Because that would have been it for you.
Yeah, so, okay. This was a crazy year and crazy turn. So at this point, nothing is sure. Turkey could be simply just pretending. It could be just, getting in and then getting out just to create a show. Italy needed England to still have a slight chance of winning, and also needed Greece. So, and also they didn't really trust Russia. That's why you could see that Norway Barents. I don't know why. Maybe I should have trusted more. But of all the people, I trust the only person I should have trusted, which was Austria. And so here's interesting. Tom tells me, look, Austria is going to try for Munich. And I tell him, okay, if you're worried about Munich, don't order Marseille to Burgundy, so I could just support hold it. And he said, no, I have to order Marseille to Burgundy. So I said, okay, fine. And he said, but I can do Venice to Tyrol, and you could do Silesia to Bohemia. So at this point, I'm very, very afraid of Tom getting Greece. I think that of all the scenarios, the most probable was Turkey giving Greece to Tom. And at that point, the center count would have been in his favor if England helped him in Brest, which I actually expected him to do. England, I talked to England, I tried to figure out if he's going to help Tom. He didn't tell me. I had no idea of what England was. I just said England was going to help Tom, but I mean, I was never sure about it, so I considered as England was helping Tom. And I was really afraid of Greece, and that's why Austria writes this really long message in which he says, my game is over. I'm so pissed at Tom, which, yeah, I believe he was pissed at Tom for several reasons. What about if I support you to Warsaw? And until the very end, I was not sure if to take that offer or not. I evaluated a lot of things, like a lot of what people would tell me. Tom would say, oh, look, you have to order Silesia to Bohemia, and I will order Venice to Tyrol, so we save Munich. And Turkey, my relationship with Turkey is pretty ambiguous at this point. we would speak from time to time, but he would never tell me anything useful. And I didn't know. He told me that I was going to win this game and that he was not going to get out. That he would he would try to do the best as possible, which he actually did. I really didn't know if to believe him or not.
We didn't do the best as possible. We didn't move Marseille to Spain.
No, sorry, man. Turkey.
Oh, gotcha.
I followed.
So also, so the reason why I moved Belgium to Holland is that since I didn't trust Russia, because my relationship, I think that Russia had a better relationship. I thought. Apparently, I was wrong. I thought that Russia had a better relationship with Italy than he had with me, even if I helped him out. So I was scared that Russia might. I mean, if Turkey didn't give Greece to Italy, Russia could just help Italy by tapping St. Petersburg. Norwegian gets Norway, and North gets Holland, thinking that I would just hold there. So, and also I saw different scenarios. Like I got very paranoid with Russia, and I have to say sorry to VI for doubting him. And that's why I ordered Norway to Barents, because I was afraid of Moscow going to St. Petersburg or something crazy. And I told Austria to cut Moss in case Barents, St. Petersburg or something like that. So yeah, I wasn't sure if to trust Austria, especially especially since I didn't know what Turkey was going to do. But I thought that of all the possible scenarios, the scenario in which Turkey just walks out was the most improbable, considering the type of player, but also the type of strategy. I think Austria actually counted on Turkey going out, but it's just putting your life on your win on someone else. And I thought it was too absurd to be true. So I considered Austria out at this point, and so there was no reason for him to lie to me. Apparently, yeah, I was wrong. Austria did lie to me, and it's pretty funny that Italy actually saved Munich.
Yeah, he cut Tyrolia.
Yeah.
That was key as well. Stitches, Hand, do you have anything else to ask Kutusov about the game before we call it a wrap?
I think he had some good diplomacy, and there was some really misfortunate moves on Austria and Italy's hands. But for the most part, it was really good. Very impressed that you could hold it for so long.
Yeah, I'm impressed too. Yeah, as I said, I'm a very inexperienced player compared to others. These people have like years of experience, and it was pulling the right strings and having that diplomatic leverage at the right time, even if I was the board leader.
Well, you had a world champion face to face. You had the number one ranked player on PlayDip, the number one player on WebDip, people with multiple finals.
The winner of the gunboat.
Yeah, I mean, just superb. Hand, you had something.
Yeah. So as you might know, like my handle in this game is Audacious Hand. Fewer people know that my Italian handle is actually Mani Puliti, which is a little bit different. But in that vein, I just wanted to ask you, how you think your like international meta mafia training kind of prepared you for its victory, and what do you feel about the pattern of international meta mafia members always winning the finals ever since they took over the helm of the server?
Well, I mean, if we win the finals, there must be a reason. I mean, let's say that I think that since diplomacy is a social game, background culture comes in effect, in my opinion. Especially in the ways, especially since non-American people have a different way of speaking. English is not the first language, so it's a complete different way of communicating, but also a different way of thinking. So for now, the demonstration, well, I mean, if two people in a row who think with this Italian, European, it's actually more European at a time, European mentality win. And I think Umbo actually mentioned that no American won the Nexus. I don't know if that's true.
No, first season.
First season.
Losers was an American, yeah.
But then Argentinian for 2 years.
But if artistic Frenchman would have win, except he got so angry he quit and stopped playing. So well, a Frenchman would have won. It's true. It's kind of embarrassing.
All right. Well,
so I mean, it's pretty. It's nothing personal, but it's pretty funny that Europeans, non-American. I mean, it's not that. I mean, I have to talk. You could even tell a little bit from my English. I'm half American myself.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is American, so I have to thank her for why my English is pretty decent. So let's say that I have this weird relationship with Americans and United States, and I feel more European, and I'm happy to have one in a more European Italian form than an American form.
Well, look,
Wow.
let me say this. Your English is more than decent. It's fantastic. Your language and word choice is superb. All the more impressive, to be honest with you, and why I hate you, is that you're 17 years old. You're in high school. You're so well educated. Man, the world is there, not just in diplomacy. I mean, I'm looking at you. You're going to come to America. All the American girls are going to like you. Whatever. You're a diplomacy champion that probably nobody knows like this, how big a deal this is. But it's a big deal to the people who care. And if you are the future of our hobby, it's a bright future indeed. So thank you so much for coming on, Alessandro.
Thank you. I appreciate for having invited me and all the commentary you would do during this final. It was very fun to listen. Very fun.
All right.
I will say I congratulate him. I always said he didn't boast, but at the end he just claimed that like his, I don't know, like his like nationality is just inherently superior at diplomacy. So that was a good final boast. I'll give you that.
Well, that's never given any European countries any problems in the past, has it? But we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, and have a good night, guys.
Okay, good night.